The moment The Simpsons aired their latest parody, it was as if a cultural grenade detonated across the internet. Snowwoke, the Reimagining, wasn't just another cheeky episode from TV's longest-running satire. It was a direct hit, brutal, intentional, and unmistakably aimed at Rachel Zegler. A princess with flowing dark hair, monologues instead of melodies, no prince, and a reputation wrapped in controversy. The caricature was clear, and so was the target. For Zegler, who'd already spent the better part of 2 years fending off headlines and fan fury over her reimagining of Snow White, the episode felt like a final blow. According to sources, Rachel was blindsided. Furious and humiliated, she immediately called her team, reportedly demanding urgent outreach to Disney, Fox, and even The Simpsons producers themselves. Her request was clear: pull the episode, or at the very least, edit out her animated doppelganger. But the answer came swiftly and without apology. No. The episode's locked. It aired. It's satire, a Fox insider allegedly said. And just like that, the internet caught fire. Clips from the episode flooded social feeds. TikToks were stitched together with side-by-side comparisons. Rachel's now infamous Snow White interviews, where she called the prince a stalker and declared the film was no longer about love, were juxtaposed against cartoon scenes of Krusty the Clown melting down in a press junket. "Please stop talking," he groaned, echoing a sentiment that resonated louder than anyone anticipated. This wasn't just parody. It was autopsy. And Rachel Z was trending not for a breakout role, not for an award, but because she had become the punchline of a nation's favorite animated institution. To understand how it came to this, you have to rewind the tape. It started with Disney's grand announcement that Rachel Zegler, fresh off her debut in West Side Story, would be their next Snow White. It was supposed to be a coronation, a defining moment. But almost immediately, the conversation took a left turn, not because of costumes or visuals or dwarfs, but because of Zegler's own words. Her press tour became a self-inflicted PR minefield. She openly criticized the 1937 original, dismissed the idea of a romantic subplot, and labeled the prince a problematic relic. She wasn't looking for love, she explained. She wanted to lead. To some, it sounded bold. To others, it came off as arrogant, hostile even. An actress seemingly sneering at the very role she was honored to inherit. And then came the activism. Zegler's abrupt political tweets during promotional interviews, her demands that people who disagreed with her views unfollow her, and her awkward dynamic with co-star Gal Gadot during press junkets all contributed to a public growing increasingly fatigued. The Disney faithful, already protective of their classics, felt alienated. Her critics labeled her dismissive, entitled. Her defenders dwindled. So when The Simpsons turned their satirical scalpel toward the cultural lightning rod Zegler had become, they didn't need to invent anything. They simply condensed months of real-world controversy into a 20-minute cartoon, and the results were devastating. The parody princess interrupts press questions with feminist lectures, denounces the prince as a toxic archetype, and ultimately proclaims, "I'm not here to be loved. I'm here to lead." It was hilarious and mercilessly accurate. The animation mimicked Zegler's tone and talking points so well, audiences couldn't tell if they were watching satire or simply holding a mirror to what had already played out in public. Fox stood its ground, ratings soared, and Rachel? She disappeared. No posts. No statements. Not a single attempt to spin the narrative. But in the absence of her voice, the noise only grew louder. Sources claim she was enraged behind the scenes, demanding her lawyers and representatives contact Fox to remove the episode. She didn't want to clap back. She wanted the cartoon erased. But the studio refused. Not only was the episode legally protected as satire, it was drawing viewership numbers Disney itself would envy. Rumors even suggest Disney reached out to smooth things over, only to be politely brushed off. Meanwhile, Rachel's silence read not as strategy, but surrender. Audiences were no longer interpreting her quiet as grace, they were reading it as weakness. And the industry noticed. Disney, according to insiders, scrapped the remaining Snow White marketing plans involving her. Scheduled appearances vanished. Her name was surgically removed from promo materials. Even her once passionate fan base was growing quiet. Behind the scenes, Rachel's saga was now a case study in PR failure. Talent agencies used her interviews as cautionary tales. Workshops featured Simpsons stills under titles like, "When Authenticity Becomes Arrogance." Casting directors pumped the brakes. One YA franchise dropped her from a shortlist. A Netflix producer was overheard saying, "We'll circle back when she's less radioactive." Rachel wasn't being judged on her talent. No one doubted that. It was her narrative, her baggage, her inability to stop stepping on rakes in public. And then it got worse. A resurfaced AI-generated hoax pretending to be Rachel on OnlyFans began trending again. Though thoroughly debunked before, it didn't matter. The internet was in no mood to fact-check. It wasn't about truth anymore. It was about symbolism. Rachel Zegler had become a placeholder for everything the audience resented about modern Hollywood. Actors who seem more interested in activism than acting, in rebranding rather than storytelling. She was no longer just an actress. She was a lightning rod. What little sympathy remained began to evaporate. Even her emotional breakdowns over online hate, once met with compassion, now felt to many like another deflection. She hadn't listened, they argued. She hadn't learned. The meme storm intensified. Reaction videos exploded. Commentary channels racked up millions of views. The Simpsons just did what Disney wouldn't, read one viral title. Another featured a fake Oscar montage of Rachel accepting a Razzie while Krusty the Clown applauded. Hollywood was watching. Studios quietly pulled her from shortlists. PR firms added new training clauses. The phrase, "Don't do a Zegler," started circulating. The implication? Stay quiet. Be pleasant. Say less. Rachel Zegler had inadvertently sparked a recalibration of how outspoken, politically engaged Gen Z stars are managed. Her career, once golden, was now a cautionary tale. In the end, what The Simpsons delivered wasn't just a roast. It was a reckoning. They didn't parody her talent. They parodied her tone, her detachment, her refusal to read the room. She thought she was rewriting the narrative. Instead, the narrative wrote her. And now, she exists in the pantheon of cultural satire not as a celebrated Disney princess, but as a yellow-skinned caricature, lecturing woodland creatures and watching her fictional film bomb in real time. And what happens next? That depends on Rachel. Because the only way out of this isn't silence. It's sincerity. Not another tweet or retweet, but a real moment of humility, of humanity. The kind that reconnects a performer with the people. Until then, she remains a cautionary echo. What happens when you mistake audience engagement for audience alignment? When you think the story is yours to command, instead of something you're entrusted to tell?